Kieran, for a team that have struggled throughout the season and have really been among the back markers since we kicked off in September, the Raiders do have a funny habit of making it tough for contenders to actually emerge with a victory. And they brought the Texans into a bit of a death struggle last night, from which Houston were lucky enough in the end to emerge. And thanks to their two biggest playmakers on offense and on defense, CJ Stroud and Derek Stingley Jr., they managed to do that, but it wasn't hugely convincing.
No, and it's funny, we just talked about the Jags and how much the Jags struggled in that game in Vegas about a month and change ago. Yeah, they've played some teams hard. It's a strange story right now in Vegas because you've got a great running back in Janty, and he showed what he can do when he's given the opportunity yesterday. Desperate quarterback situation that's got to get resolved in April. And then you got a coach who is more than likely going to be one and done because it's just been a miserable season. Offensive wise, I think I saw a stat they hadn't scored more than 17 points in, I think not all season, but in quite a while anyway. They've been putrid on offense. They've just been hanging their hat on Max Crosby and highlight plays from him. Listen, it's that time of the year where players are playing. I've said it before. Players are playing for a contract. They're putting themselves in the shop window for a team for next year. Geno, I think we can agree that Geno won't be the quarterback in Vegas next year. So it's really, it's players just trying to play out and show out and just show, listen, I know the season's done. We're not a great team, but we can still perform and we can still put on a performance and put it up to some of the bigger players. And, I certainly didn't think the Texans were going to lose that game, but you can never tell with this league, a couple of drop of a ball or an interception and who knows what can happen. But despite Janty's, really great performance, he had 128 in the ground and 60 in the air for 2 touchdowns. That was the offense for the Raiders, and they kept it going. But the story is, the Texans were able to hold on. They've been in so many close games, especially the start of the season, and it would have been a heartbreaker for them to have lost that and lose complete ground with the Jaguars. And as it is, they're just a game behind. So it was a positive outcome. I know Will Anderson wasn't happy about it last night. They were looking for a more fluid performance and something to, kind of get the crowd more enthused or more excited. But, again, we say it all the time. Everyone says it all the time. It's hard to get a win in the National Football League, and it's hard to grind out wins, and especially when it's expected of you. And, it could have been classed as a trap game. Even when it's expected of you, it's hard to get those W's. But, the Texans did what they had to do. They clawed out a win. Stroud did what he had to do. The defense stepped up. They had a huge amount of tackles. Bullock had 9 tackles. Kamari Lassiter had 8. And obviously, Petrie throws in his usual 6-7 tackles. But the story is the Texans did what they had to do. They've got to keep pace with this Jaguars team because who knows what can happen down the stretch. The Raiders kept fighting. I'll give them credit for that. The defense didn't really cover themselves in glory, but it's a game that kind of everyone got reminded, oh yeah, Janty was a top pick in this draft. He was a phenomenal running back at Boise State. He's got the ability. Give him a decent line. Give him a quarterback who can help him. And this is what he can do. So it's a season. It's been a tough season, and we talk about Cam Ward having tough seasons. They're only going to get better through adversity. It's been a really tough season for Janty, but he's going to be all the better for what he's gone through this year. He's going to come out of next year with a better quarterback. I don't want to say a better coach, but he's going to have a different coach. He's going to have different positional coaches. He's going to have a much, much different roster surrounding him. So, he's still reminding the league that, I was a top pick in the draft and I'm able to do these things because pass catching running backs are a huge commodity in this league also. So Texans eke out the win. Raiders, we know they're not great, but they didn't cover themselves in shame yesterday.
Brian, I kind of get the impression that D'Amico Ryans and the coaching staff in Houston won't actually be particularly displeased at this because you come out with the win. As we've said, the Raiders had this ability to be kind of awkward, even though they ultimately roll over at the end and die. And you're 10-5, you're tucked in nicely in both your divisional race and in the playoff race. And I'm looking at the other teams around them in the AFC, and I've kind of made this point or alluded to it over the past couple of weeks. I'm seeing an emergent Jags team, an emergent Patriots team, an emergent Broncos team, but I'm also looking at a Texans team that has been to the playoffs the last 2 seasons and has won playoff games the last 2 seasons and who are trending in the right direction at just the right time with all of the pieces on the board if they can play them in the right way.
Yeah, if we're gonna load it up to the Jags for winning these tight games and putting themselves in a better position, isn't it the same team, a different team in the same division? Like they've come out the right side of it, a really tough game. I thought their offense yesterday was stuttering throughout the course of the game. They only one touchdown late in the game. Bear in mind there was a pick six by Gino. I mean the Raiders did everything to help them win that game. But yeah, they've come out the right. They've found a way to win, Connor, when they haven't played well. But you touched on it a couple of weeks ago. You're looking at all the defenses in the AFC, and in which defense right now would you would you trust the most to go into the playoffs and deliver these wins? And in a year where some of these teams going into the playoffs won't have a lot of experience, maybe it is the Texans that are floating under the radar that can go win these games. You touched on it there. Wild card victories the last 2 years at home, giving the Chiefs everything they can think about in the divisional round game. And they're going to look at this and say, okay, this is the model. And Kieran was at this stage last year where he said, right, this Texans team are ready to go all the way. Maybe we're a year removed from that. Maybe this is the year. But yeah, like playoff experience is huge. When you get into these games, you know, we all know the minute you watch a playoff game, you go, okay, this doesn't feel like regular season football. The enormity this is huge. Even the wild card round are special with so many games. And the Texans right now, I think it's key.
And I watch teams that succeed through explosive plays during the season. They're spectacular highlight reel teams. And I'm just shaking my head going, that doesn't happen in the playoffs. The teams that emerge are the teams that know how to get down and wrestle in the mud, that get into the death struggle and emerge the right side of it. The Texans look like that kind of team.
But how often do we look at the playoff games and we look at the lines that are affected by QuinnBet and we say, okay, there's 2 or 3 points in every game. You're getting these games that are going to go right down to the wire. No teams. It's very rare we see blowout games, and throughout the playoffs, every game is always nip and tuck. Texans for me, I feel they need to win the division. I feel they need to get that playoff game at home. I'll be interested to see what comes of a wild card game where they have to go on the road because we haven't seen that the last couple of years. This weekend feels like a real playoff type of game because there's so much on the line. It's a Saturday night prime time game, 9:30 Irish time, where they go into SoFi against a Chargers team that have come off another huge victory. This is a real kind of testing point for them this weekend. Can they go on the road and win this game?
Our final talking point of the weekend was one of the earlier games in the weekend. And Kieran, I had watched, as we all did, Rams Seahawks on Thursday night and thought, wow, that's going to be the game of the season. Like, we're not topping that until we get to the playoffs. And within 48 hours, we saw a game that, if in its entirety might not have been as good, the conclusion was as crazy as you're going to see. And an epic struggle between the Bears and the Packers ends up with the Bears pulling out a walk-off touchdown in overtime to send the Soldier Field crowd wild and ultimately send the Bears to the playoffs, courtesy of a victory by none other than Aaron Rodgers on Sunday night. How sweet is that for Bears fans? The man who once proclaimed himself the owner of the Chicago Bears ultimately is the man who sends them to the playoffs. A crazy, crazy game in the NFC North. Looked like a playoff game. And at this time of the season, for both of these teams now, every game is a playoff game.
Yeah, definitely had the feel of a playoff game. Classic Chicago windy game. I mean, there's debris flying all over the place. Just classic NFC North football. Tight margins, field goal here and there, and it didn't look great for the Bears. I mean, they the Packers. I mean, we'll give them credit. I mean, they stayed with it and they looked. I don't want to say in the ascendancy, but they probably looked. Definitely the first 3 quarters definitely looked like the team that was more likely to win it. Great spectacle though. I mean, it was just. I mean, that's the football we love. That's the atmosphere. That's the environment. That's the style of play. It's just dirty. It's just gritty. It's teams grinding out. It's not always spectacular, but it's teams grinding out yards. They're just hammering out yards and just doing what they got to do.
And I'm going to put my fandom aside for a moment here because there'll be plenty of time for me to get giddy about the Bears and their first playoff appearance in 5 years. But if Caleb Williams had taken a lick like that, a helmet-to-helmet shot from a Packers defender, I would not be happy. Like that is a terrible hit by Austin Booker and Jordan Love that puts him out of the game. We do not want to see the game's best players, or any players indeed, put in that position. I mean, that could have had a really, really bad ending for Jordan Love. It's not good. And I heard a Packers defender, I can't remember who it was, complaining after the game, saying, so you can get thrown out of a game for taunting twice. You can have 2 unnecessary roughness penalties and just keep going. That was Booker's second 15-yard penalty. And that's all right. You can argue mitigation and maybe Jordan Love's head is dipping and you're getting into the rugby yellow card, red card territory here. But helmet-to-helmet hits have just got to be taken seriously by the NFL, and they've got to be officiated properly. And granted, this one worked out in the favor of the Bears, but that doesn't make it right. And if it was the other way around, I'd be just as annoyed about it if I was a Packers fan.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem across the board. I mean, it's a huge problem with Pee Wee football, with Pop Warner, up to middle school, up to high school. I mean, it's unfortunately part of.
I don't want my kid playing a sport if that's the kind of hit that they're going to take, if that's not being officiated properly.
Yeah. Well, what I will say is I have seen it in high school ball. It's been officiated properly, but I mean, again, we talked at the start of the program. We talked about consistency of referees and decision making. I mean, until it's eradicated from the game, and we see it in college a lot with targeting. They're making calls on this all the time, whether it's uppercuts or whether it's helmet to helmet. It's got to be taken out of the game, and it's going to be a generational thing. But I mean, it's going to take time. But it's the consistency of the officiating that's really going to be the.
But they did it with the hip drop. I mean, and that's a more difficult tackle to officiate, and it's gone. When was the last time you saw a player even attempt something like that?
Yeah, I mean that's there was a little bit of that at the start of the season, but you're right. It's slowly kind of disappeared. I mean, it's just the nature of the speed of the game that helmet to helmet. Unfortunately, it's gonna happen from time to time. It's lucky that Love was able to walk off on his own strength, and it's also quite fortunate the Packers have somebody like Malik Willis who can come in and I don't want to say miss a beat, but he's more than I mean, you look around the league at backup quarterbacks. I mean, you would take Malik Willis over probably 75% of the league's backup quarterbacks. He came in, he's dynamic.
Interestingly, like a lot of teams try and go for a backup quarterback that plays in a similar style and that they can just run the same offense with. Malik Willis gives them something completely different. And actually, the Bears really struggled with him for most of the rest of the game. They didn't know how to deal with him as a runner. He was dropping dimes in the passing game as well. He really was threatening, and it was working well for the Packers.
Yeah, and I think his calling card, he's probably more known for his speed. And, he was mobile as hell in this game, and he was getting out of tight corners all the time. But they trust him, and he showed up. I mean, that throw to Dobbs was about as good as you can do. And he did what, he almost got him over the line. But the real story is obviously what happened in the last 2 minutes of that game. I mean, it's just that's the football we love to watch. That's the drama we love to watch. And it's funny that local guy Cairo Santos, who went to school just up the road, they have the football stadium is named after him. It's funny how he was just, and I'm sure you were probably tearing your hair out right before the 2-minute warning, how he was just leisurely just strolling around, just almost like picking up grass and throwing it in the air just to see where the wind was blowing. I'm sure Bears fans were losing their mind watching him with that. But nobody, I mean, I think the stat is what the Packers had a 99% chance to win the game at that stage. I mean, right at that juncture, right after that field goal was kicked, it just went bananas. I mean, onside kicks, fumbles by Willis, the throw to Jonte Walker. Jade Walker, who nobody knew about, a third string.
It's the Juby slide as well. He had the celebration for the moment too.
I know, right? I mean, it's a third string wide receiver that, I'm sure that Brady was looking at his notes saying, who's this guy? I mean, it had everything. It really did. It was a great finish to the game. For me as well
on that point, and he's gotten a lot of incoming fire in this show. Tom Brady called a great game.
Oh yeah,
that was one of the best games of Brady's career. Like he took us inside the huddle there in a way that only he can, and it's frustrating because he doesn't do it often enough.
Right, and his color commentator, the main commentator, Kevin Burkhardt. I mean, he's he's just been getting better and better, and the two of them are a great partnership. He used to be a Met broadcaster back in the day, and he's transferred into being a phenomenal play-by-play guy. But the game just took off after that. It was a great spectacle, and we know what happened afterwards. Caleb, and the other story is Caleb Williams again, somebody who I've doubted was able to turn it up, but ever since that Eagles game, or just basically around that time, Thanksgiving, ever since then, I mean, he's been everything you could possibly want. He's protecting the ball. He's not. You can talk about his accuracy from time to time, but I mean, that throw to DJ Moore right at the end, I mean, that was as good. I was showing the throw to my son. I was like, that's as good of an overhead or an overhand, catch that you can make. I mean, it was just a perfect dot, especially in those.
Credit Keyshawn Nixon on the coverage. Like, you cannot cover a player better than Keyshawn Nixon.
He did a better job on that
play. It was
he did a better job than covering Walker for the initial touchdown. Yeah. That's for sure.
There's a miscommunication on that one, but and I think it was Burkhardt who had dropped the old Dan Marino line earlier on in the game. You can't cover a perfect throw.
Yeah,
It was
and it was
a perfect throw.
it was a perfect throw. And you got to remember in those windy conditions, we saw earlier in the game when Jordan Love threw a ball into the end zone, how the ball just
Sailed right. Yeah.
it just fan-tailed away. We saw kicks going to the right, and the fact that I mean, it was a dot. It was an absolute dot. Thrown in those conditions, phenomenal. And I'll have to give a lot of praise, a lot of props to Williams. I know he struggled early part of the season. You know more than anybody, but just like Lawrence has been coming along, and it just shows you. And again, this could be a conversation. This could be a whole separate conversation. Coaching and culture wins. And I don't care what your team is like or what your roster is like.
Yeah.
Coaching and culture wins. We've seen the job that Johnson has done. We've seen the job that Cohen has done.
I'm gonna underline that point with the Dennis Allen hire as well. Dennis Allen, obviously lost his head coaching job in New Orleans. The thing that has impressed me most as a Bears fan this year is looking at players like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, as you say, Ja'Day Walker, DeMarco Jackson, Nashon Wright, who is the NFL's interception leader this season. These are guys who were dropped elsewhere. Ja'Day Walker was an undrafted rookie free agent. Guys that were picked up in mid-season, guys that were filling gaps because players went down injured. When those kind of players come in and contribute, that tells you something about the culture in the locker room. This is a place where players want to play. This is a place where 2 years ago, Caleb Williams didn't even want to play and was hoping about the fact that he wanted to go to Minnesota, didn't want to be drafted by Chicago. And it's taken the right coaching hire and the right coaching hires to get there, which, is a template for a lot of teams. We could talk about the Giants in the off season. You got to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince. But Brian, the permutations that open up from here in the NFC North are now fascinating. We mentioned it a little bit earlier about how the Lions are still mathematically in with a chance, but it's really difficult for them. The Bears and Packers now look set on a collision course here. We could get round 3 because it's unlikely, but the Bears could still clinch the number 1 overall seed if results go their way and if they win out. But the most likely scenario is the Bears win the NFC North and finish in the 2 seed, and the Packers finish in the 7 seed, and the two of them end up playing on wildcard weekend. And I think probably most of us would sign up for part 3 of this, the way it's been going so far.
The neutral certainly will, Connor. Yeah, I think ultimately you touched on earlier on.
I don't know if I can survive it, and I need to apologise to my neighbours for the shouting at ungodly hours of the morning.
Well, it's a fierce rivalry between two storied franchises. I'm saying all the right words in advance of a potential game. Like, this is the game we all want to see it again. I don't know whether necessarily you want to see it again, because it's not good for you. It's not good for Kieran O'Donovan, who's not here to see it. He's probably on life support at this stage after. Like, I had 4 minute audio clips from him yesterday, or WhatsApp notes about how the game was won and lost for the Bears and Packers. Yeah, look, if you're assuming that the 49ers are going to take care of the Bears next weekend in that case, and I don't think that's even a foregone conclusion. I think Quinn Bay have the line reflective of 2.5 points straight away. That strikes me as okay. They don't know where this one's going to go, and why can't the Bears?
Yeah, but the realist in me says that the Bears beat the Steelers when Mason Rudolph was filling in a quarterback. They had Jordan Love out for 2 quarters yesterday. They hit the Eagles at just about the right time. They have gotten plenty of breaks along the way here, and a lot of things have gone in their favor. And I know that every question that they've been asked, they've somehow managed to come up with an answer, but an onside kick, 8% chance of recovery, they've been pulling up the right numbers all the time, and maybe they've earned their luck because of the crappy luck they've had in recent season, but at a certain point that runs out, and we've been saying it every single week.
Yeah, like everyone's been. Look, we've spoken about the touchdown, but like it was a 4th down play as well. People are forgetting that it was essentially the last play of the game, and it felt like a bit of a Hail Mary because Caleb Williams was scrambling. Okay, miscommunication on the back end by the Packers secondary, but again, it felt like he had no choice to put the shoulder up, and everybody's just assuming like this is the end of the game, and they come down with it. So the fact that they were able to put themselves in the position to score after getting the ball back, like there's all the work was still had to be done in order to get the game into overtime. And even in overtime, it looked like it was going to go in the way of the Packers for a certain period of time. Just topsy-turvy game. Like, they played each other so tight over the course of the last 2 weeks that we, as and I say we, I mean me and Kieran and maybe others, would love to see it again. But I'm not entirely sure it's going to be.
You and I had this conversation, and they're vastly different players, particularly athletically. But Caleb Williams does have something of that funny Eli Manning about him. It seems like the more pressurized the spot, the more he wants it. Like, he has the coldest blood running through his veins. If you heard the Bears caller on the radio shot, he said, "The Iceman cometh and the Iceman taketh."
He's just doing things right now that just remind me of Eli Manning back in the day. And even we alluded to it yesterday morning when we were discussing there was a game, and Kieran will remember it well, where the Giants went into overtime in Philadelphia, and at that stage the league rules were first team gets the ball, first team scores, game over. And he went with that back of the shoulder throw in, Plaxico Burress brings it in, and it was striking that the plays were so similar. And that was a walk-off touchdown victory. Like, most teams are kind of saying, right, let's get the play calling in place to get ourselves in position to kick a field goal. Never mind having the balls to go and actually call a play of that magnitude, because that could have went very differently. You're talking about Nixon, sublime coverage, and it's a perfect throw. He could have easily found a way to navigate that as an interception, and then all of a sudden things are very different. But it's more the trust element. And I love Caleb Williams' press conference after, where he says, this is the best coaching staff I've ever been around. And it strikes me as they trust him. He trusts the head coach. That's the play call. We're going to make it. We're going to make it happen, make it work. I think the Bears are a serious threat in the NFC. I know you don't want to hear it because you're trying to keep your feet on the ground, but right now, the way they're playing, it's a bit of momentum as well. They're building that momentum, Connor. They're now winning these games. Years ago, you said the Bears don't win these type of games. The Bears always come out the wrong side of these games. Well, now they're winning it. 2 weeks on from when they lost a really difficult one in Ambo, when it looked like the game was gone, to pull that out. It's a huge, it's monumental the way the things.
And as you say, it sets up a brilliant clash at Santa Clara when the Bears go to the 49ers with both of those teams with number one seed aspirations, as we've been saying. We'll get to all those Week 17 games when we have our live preview show on Thursday. Are we on Thursday? Christmas week schedule. I'll need to double check that one. But
no, we don't do anything Christmas Day, Connor. Even that day is no. I think it's going to be Saturday morning podcast format.
Yes,
previewing the weekend.
Of course it will.
Yeah.
The heathen in me forgetting momentarily that Thursday is in fact, of course, Christmas Day. Whatever you're doing that way, I hope you get to spend it with your loved ones and enjoy a well-earned break, as we will too. And we'll be back with you with those Week 17 picks on the Irish NFL Show.